Hey everyone, welcome into To The Point podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. It's Tuesday again. We just did a podcast around midnight Atlantic time, so it's just the second podcast of Tuesday technically. But we talked all about the NFL. If you haven't listened to that podcast yet, please go back and do that. That's wherever you get your podcasts. I broke down every one of the wild card weekend games, started to look at the future, what's to come for these different teams. So that was last night's podcast. Today, Shamus will join me in about an hour's time, give or take. We'll get into a number of different things, some NBA storylines. I want to talk to him with his take on the NFL weekend. And there's a lot of NHL storylines as well to dive into, including his Toronto Maple Leafs, who I'm sure he's happy with, but also a great game over the weekend against the Boston Bruins. And that's where I want to start today. I didn't get to talk about it last night. I want to start with that story today. And every Leaf game is put on a pedestal. For some people, it's must-watch TV. I get it. If you're a fan of the team, you like to watch your team. For media people, it's given more gravitas than it's worth. Maple Leafs Detroit Red Wings game does not hold much value to me. It's not a game that you must see. It's not a game for me that I'm going to go out of my way to watch. On this show, I try to talk about all the different teams. I try to watch as many teams as possible. Martin Luther King Day yesterday, I watched Florida, I watched Buffalo, I watched the Kraken, I watched Dallas last night. I bounced around. I watched a lot of different teams. But Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, for whatever that's worth anymore, which Hockey Night in Canada doesn't have the gravitas it once had. This game was worth the hype. This game was worth watching. And to put that all into perspective, it delivered as well. Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins put out a very exciting product. And it went how I thought the game would go. I'll say that. The team that I think is the better team won the game. Boston Bruins edged out Toronto Maple Leafs 4-3. And let's start off positive for both sides. For Boston, they lost to Toronto earlier in the season. So those wins, they needed to prove that they could beat the Maple Leafs. Now, did they really have to prove that? I don't know. But again, let's make that seem like that's relevant right now. They need to prove they could beat Toronto, get that in their own mind. Also, they were coming off their first regulation home loss of the season to the Seattle Kraken, so they avenged that. That's a positive. You get something out of it. They got production from Pastrnak. They got production from the bottom of their lineup, and their game-winning goals by Matt Grzelcyk, who had one goal in the season. So positive note there. For the Maple Leafs, you lose the game, but I thought they played a very good third period. I thought they were in it the entire way. And I thought Austin Matthews had one of his better games of the season. I've been pointing out, because it's evident, that he hasn't been having a great year. He hasn't been one of the best players in the NHL. But, seeing him whack the puck out of midair, then go down the ice, find the puck again, steal it, go top shelf, that's Austin Matthews. That's my bar. That's what I expect. If Andrei Vasilevsky's playing like crap, I pointed out. When teams aren't doing things, when their superstars aren't producing, nobody will point it out sooner than yours truly. So that's where I'm coming from on that front. I thought he was great. The team was in it the entire way. And you do lose the game. But you're on the road. It was your third game in 4 nights. You can take that one on the chin and say, we gave them a tough go. They had a day off before the game. We've been playing a lot of hockey. So there's your positive spin on both teams. Now, big picture, you take more out of bigger games than you do than, say, tonight when the Toronto Maple Leafs play the Florida Panthers. I won't have as many big takeaways because Florida is not that good of a team, and they played yesterday. So the Maple Leafs get the advantage tonight where Florida's coming off a back-to-back. But looking at the entire game, the most evident thing for me, and it's something I thought they might have fixed, but they haven't, and it's that defense. Toronto hasn't had a number one defenseman in I don't know if they've had one in my life. I'm 24. If the argument's Thomas Caberlet, okay, I won't quibble with you. I don't think he was a number one defenseman. I think he was good. I don't think he's a number one defenseman. But that's the only guy that comes to mind for me. Phaneuf wasn't. You go through all those different eras. They had good teams then. I don't think they ever had a number one defenseman. McCabe and Caberlet were a hell of a pair. Pavel Kavina, great. But the Maple Leafs haven't won a championship in over 50 years, and I'm not sure they've had a number one defenseman. Maybe they had one in the middle of that, but in my 24 years, I don't think they've had one. Is there a direct correlation there? I think there is. You can win championships without an elite goaltender, but it's hard to win one without an elite defenseman. And they added Connor Timmins, which is, picking away at the edges. It's looking at a player that is a bigger body so you can sell that to your fan base. But then you see him on the ice and he's a smooth skater and you like pieces of his game. But he's 6'3" and he plays with zero physicality. So again, that doesn't fit the mold. He's turnover prone, a little frantic with the puck. And you like Liljegren and Sandin are fine, but again, they're the same player, they're the same build, they have the same mindset. So that's all well and good. But they're a couple of fours, if you're looking at it. They both can make good plays. They both can make really bad plays. They both skate well. Like they do it, both have a good eye for the game, if you will. They both know how to play the game of hockey effectively. But big picture, the Toronto Maple Leafs defense core that I thought was finally solved is not. And one of the bigger reasons and why it looks as bad as it has lately is because Morgan Reilly has been pretty terrible. He's paid like a number two defenseman, I think fairly. He makes over $7 million, which he's probably worth. It's not my favorite player. I pointed that out forever. I think he's augmented because of the region he plays. I think Josh Morrissey's a better defenseman than Morgan Reilly. I think, when I go through it, Shea Weber was always better than Morgan Reilly. You can make an argument at times Jeff Petrie is a better defenseman than Morgan Reilly, but I'm not going to here to just downplay him. But since coming back from his injury, he's been awful. Positioning, his hockey IQ, his inability to bring anything to the table offensively when it comes to joining the rush and being an active participant has not been there. And Saturday night, the pairing of Connor Timmins and Morgan Reilly, you can make the argument, cost the team the game. Timmins had to play at the blue line where he throws a reverse pass along the blue line. Hockey 101, don't do that. Don't do that, never, never. Plus he's on the far blue, like all the way to the boards, and he's throwing it across to his defense partner. Why? I don't know. Also, Morgan Reilly on this play. You have offensive positioning. You're in a good setting. Why are you not in the middle of the ice? Why are you not closer to your defense partner? You look like you're involved. You look like you're ready. He's on the opposite blue line himself, and he's near the boards. He's hanging out. He's talking to the fan. He's looking at the chick, the cute girl in the front row. Oh, wait, he's engaged now, I think. Well, maybe he's still taking a peek. I don't know. But he wasn't focused on the game. Ends up, goes on the stick of David Pastrnak, a player you don't want to give a guy space, and you never want to have on the puck on his stick because guess what? Bad stuff's going to happen. And before you know it, the Bruins score, and Bob's your uncle. But the entire night they were hemmed in. They didn't make good decisions. And Morgan Reilly looks like a defenseman that hasn't played much hockey, a guy that doesn't have any confidence, and quite frankly, he's better insulated now than he ever has been in his Toronto Maple Leaf tenure. We've seen him play with god-awful defense scores where Roman Polak was asked to do more, and you're going through old man after old man. He's got to play 27 minutes a night. The dignified tank years where the team stunk and Morgan Reilly had to play by himself with Jake Gardner and whoever else they could throw on the ice as they tried to lose. That's what he had. Now TJ Brody's not playing. He's injured. But I mentioned Liljegren. You got Sandin. They don't have a great defense core, but I think it's fair. But the bottom of the roster isn't great, and I'll touch on that in a second. But to look at this team and say, well, Jordy Ben's our answer, or Connor Timmins playing more minutes is our answer, or Jake Muzzin's neck becoming somewhat being healthy is our answer, is not an answer. It's looking at a question on the SATs or on a test, and you're just like, yeah, I'll skip that one. I'll come back to it. Because it's a question that you know the answer to, but you don't know how to address it. You don't know how to go about answering the question. Might take a little more effort. Might take some interesting tweaks to make this happen. Getting a number one defenseman is not an easy thing. Every team's looking for them, but they need an upgrade. I didn't think Jacob Chychrun was the answer, but he might be. Because he's what's available. He's with the Arizona Coyotes. They stink. They're going to want to sell him. He's got years left on his deal. I mentioned this with Travis Konechny, where you get him for multiple seasons, multiple playoff cracks. He's an offensive guy where I think you could use another really good defenseman, quite frankly. But they don't grow on trees. Carolina's not parting with Jacob Slavin. Ryan Lindgren is so valuable to New York. He might not be to other teams. He's incredibly valuable to them because they know how good he is. Matt Green was really dependable in LA when they're winning those cups. Yeah, he's Matt Green. He didn't skate well, big physical body. They loved him there. It worked. It worked. Brandon Carlo, is he a flashy defenseman? See a guy that you go and say, well, Brandon, if you're just a hockey fan, you won't even notice Brandon Carlo. You know the game. You know that this guy is so valuable to that team, and then he brings something just different from average defensemen in the league. But for this Leafs team, getting that physical defenseman might not be the answer. It might be their undoing. I still think they're not a physical enough team. I've been saying that for years. Kyle Dubas hates physicality. He's a numbers guy. He's a little too much Brandon Staley for my taste. But this is how he thinks they're going to win. He likes puck-moving people. He likes out of your zone quickly. I can appreciate that. Jacob Chychrun will help you with that. He makes $4.6 million. Jake Muzzin makes $5.85. You can fit that in if Jake Muzzin goes on LTIR for the remainder of the season. Dead cap, you can add money onto it and improve your roster. It's just about completing a trade at this point. It was rumored this week that Matthew Knies is the starting point. I'm telling you, if I'm Arizona, I'm not doing that 1-for-1. No way in hell I'm doing 1-for-1 on a prospect that's playing decent at the University of Minnesota at his second year there. That the Leafs don't even know if he's that good. But I'll take the 20-year-old. I'll add him to my team, certainly. You got Logan Cooley, another NCAA player that might play in the NHL next year. Matthew Knies, Logan Cooley playing in the NHL next year. There's a couple of prospects. But if I'm Arizona, I want a first-round pick, and I want Matthew Knies. Matthew Knies, refresher, wasn't a first. So again, prospect and first-round pick, and maybe more. Maybe more. And that might sound crazy, but if you want to make your team better, if you want to try to push your chips all the way in, if I'm Kyle Dubas, that's how I'm approaching this, you'll pay it. Because you're not working next year anyway if you don't win, so who cares? Let the next GM deal with your shit. But to think that this team is going to get a whole lot heavier, I just think I'm giving up on that thought. I don't think that's the way they'll approach this. Another good puck mover, an offensive-minded guy, live and die by the sword. he'll be a better addition than Timmins. Timmins is coming, he does the job. I like him as my 7th guy. You have an injury, he comes in. Somebody struggles, a healthy scratch, he comes in. Jordy Ben can be number 8. You're going to need a lot of defensemen to win at the end of the day. But if you got Brody, Reilly, you have Liljegren, Sandin, Justin Hall, and Giordano, who comes out? If you can get a Chikrin. I'll be honest, I think Justin Hall has played pretty well over the last 20 games. He had obviously a horrible start to the year, but you don't notice him anymore. He makes simple plays, and he's not doing more than he's capable of. I think he's played pretty solid hockey. Giordano's not coming out. The top 2. To me, Sandin or Liljegren would come out for me in that instance. Because I'd want Hall because he's more of a defensive-minded guy. You have Gio, you have Hall, and you have Brody. Pair that with 3 offensive-type defensemen. It might be Sandin that comes out. I think it would be Hall based on the way they built this roster. But this is the kind of thing you could look into. I thought they didn't need a defenseman. I'm starting to think more and more they do because over the last number of games, they're getting exposed. And based off the play of wingers across the league, don't expect them to give more effort in their own zone because it's just not there. Wingers now are more lazy than they ever have been. I'll tell you, if you're coming up and you're playing the wing position and I think you want to impress CHL, scouts, general managers, NCAA, wherever you want to go, give a shit in your own zone. Don't fly out of your own blue line before your defenseman even has the puck to make a play. Stay back and make sure your team's secure so then you don't have to come back and pretend like you give a shit again. Too many times wingers are just trying to get down the ice. That stretch pass, it's not a play that works effectively or consistently. I hate it. And teams use it all the time. You have these many puck-moving defensemen. Either let them come out of the zone, but come back and help. Start your breakout with you in your own zone. Okay, you might have to make another pass to get some more speed, but the game is so fast now, you can catch up to the play. Wingers. I played wing. I got back in my own zone. You got to go work along the boards, win a puck battle, get the puck out. So be it. God forbid Pierre Engvall cannot go back in his own zone and win a fucking puck battle. God forbid Cole Caulfield can't come back in and try to give a shit. A little. Artemi Panarin. These youngsters in New York, I'm watching them on Sunday against Montreal. You're playing Vitaly Krasov and Kako. Get your ass on that board and win the battle. Win that battle to get the puck out of the zone to start an offensive attack. You have not earned the right to have the drive-by, the fly-out of the zone. Be conscientious of your defense and who you're on the ice with. Because maybe the defense are on the ice aren't that good. They can't do it all by themselves. They need some help. Use that brain. Just a little bit of it. But to me, the Maple Leafs need to look at a defenseman. I think it would help their team a lot. I also think at the deadline, they need to add another bottom 6 forward. To me, it's a risky game to go into a series and bank on Pierre Engvall and Dryden Hunt, Wayne Simmons, Alexander Kerfoot to provide you anything of substance. Based on one game, the Boston Bruins bottom 6 thoroughly outplayed the Maple Leafs bottom 6 on Saturday. Seemingly every shift they were in their own zone. They were hemmed, and they didn't get a lot of opportunities. Charlie Coyle, Thomas Nosek, Trent Frederick, these guys were better. Engvall might have scored a goal. It was, quite frankly, Allmark, brutal goal. Make the save. It's an individual effort, but I mean, 9 out of 10 times, that's a save. That's the easiest save possible. You put the puck in the corner, Engvall hits the bench, you're like, okay, another Engvall shift. Great. Scores a goal on the play. I'm not banking him doing that in the playoffs. Adding another bottom six forward, I think, is paramount because you need to have games where you're better than the Bruins' bottom six. Because can the least firepower can pretty much go toe-to-toe, I think. You got Krejci, who's great. Taylor Hall, I thought, played really well Saturday night. He's had a good season. Pasternak's a superstar. Pasternak's now up to 35 goals after having 3 points yesterday, including 2 goals. He's out of this mind. Bergeron's still playing at a very high level. Marchand, of course. Krejci's been better than I thought he'd be. Played game 1,000 yesterday in that rout of Philadelphia. So, looking at everything, I don't think you're going to be better than Frederick. I don't think you're going to be better. And Boston, I think, will be looking to add as well. If it doesn't rattle their core, I think they'll be looking at Bo Horvat. I think they'll look and see what the asking price is for him. I think they'll check on Jonathan Toews. And I think Jonathan Toews would be a good ad for Toronto, quite frankly. Another center would be really nice for that team. Because you got Holmberg and you got Kampf. I get it. But Toews could play wing, but also take important draws. Maybe you put him on a shift with Tavares late in the game. Jonathan Toews could win a draw because Tavares got owned by Bergeron on the faceoff dot on Saturday night. Toews is a wily vet. He knows how to win these draws. He's great in the faceoff dot. One of the strengths of his game. Just some food for thought. Now the Bruins, Ullmark struggled in this game big time. He didn't play well, neither did Matt Murray. But to me, the Bruins just were a little bit of a step ahead. If you look at the 3 periods, I would say the Bruins were the better team for 35 to 40 minutes of the game, and the Leafs are better for 20. Third period, the Leafs played a pretty damn good period. They got some good opportunities. They hemmed them in. Matthews tied the game. But at the end, Grizzlies was able to score a big goal, a little lapse in defensive coverage, and before you know it, the game's over. It hurts that you don't get a point there, that you don't squeak away with at least a point on the road, which I'm sure they would have loved to have. But now for the Leafs, you're not catching Boston. You're just not. They're not going to have a dip like this. In Tampa and Toronto should just accept their fate and know they're playing each other again. But now for Toronto, here's the rub. You need to continue to play well, but you also got to stay ahead of Tampa. Because home ice matters when you haven't won jack shit. When you are not confident going into a series because you haven't proven that you can win anything, have as many advantages at your disposal as you possibly can. Have home ice. Have the crowd down 4 out of 7 at the Scotiabank Arena. Have last change. Your defensive matchup that you want, make sure that you have it 4 out of the 7. Because currently, Toronto Maple Leafs are only 2 points up on the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Tampa Bay Lightning have 2 games in hand. Tampa will have 3 games in hand after tonight as Toronto plays the Florida Panthers. So yes, you want to continue to work your craft. You're not worried about not making the playoffs, which is a great feeling in mid-January. But also, you want to be in the best possible position that you can be in. You're not worried about Buffalo. You're not worried about Florida. You're not worried about Team X. But I would be concerned with Tampa. I don't want to play at the Amalie Arena more than I have to. Yes, you got to play this team It won't be that fun. You don't want to play them again. You lost to them last year. Yada, yada, yada. Excuses will not be there for the Maple Leafs this year. Now you need to put yourself in the best possible position to win. Go out and earn the second spot in the Atlantic. I thought they'd win the division. I'm going to be wrong. I thought they'd beat the best team in the East, quite frankly. I'm going to be wrong. But don't throw away home ice advantage because Tampa is on a roll right now. Vasilevsky's playing incredible. Braden Point's playing like a top 5 player in the league over the last 3 to 4 weeks. Kucherov's on fire and he's healthy. Stamkos isn't even scoring goals and Tampa's winning. They don't lose right now. They beat the Red Hot Kraken yesterday. The Kraken had won 7 straight. Impressive stuff by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Nick Paul continues to chip in that defense. So look at your situation and make sure that team does not leapfrog you. Make sure that you're set. Because Tampa has traded pieces. They've had to offload players because they win. But they'll still do something at the deadline. You know they will. I didn't see that Brandon Hagel move coming last year. But they pulled it off. They traded a first to get Hagel. They got him for multiple years. He's fit in like a glove in Tampa Bay. They got Nick Paul from the Ottawa Senators and they re-signed him. They know they're still in a Stanley Cup window. They're still hungry to win. They've been in the finals the last 3 years. I think they want to make it 4 straight. Win 3 of the last 4 cups. They got Perbix on the back end, who they brought up from Syracuse this year. And he's played really well. Actually, he's a rookie. He's played pretty well for a young kid in the NHL. Victor Hedman's still there. Still got Sergachev, Chernak. You got great defense, but can you add depth? Can you add another defenseman on the back end that can play some minutes if you need him to? Is there another forward that you're going to add into this mix? But I don't think they'll be quiet. I don't think Julien Brisebois and the Tampa Bay Lightning will just stand there and do nothing while their teams around them try to get better. Because despite the fact that the Bruins are going to win the Atlantic, maybe the Bruins will have the best record in the NHL or even in the Eastern Conference, but I wouldn't rule out Carolina because they don't lose right now. You still, the entire league is looking at Tampa Bay because they are the gold standard. They are the team to beat because nobody's been able to knock them off that perch. Of course, Colorado can say that they have, but Colorado's in a dogfight to make the playoffs. They're not worried about looking at Tampa Bay. They're just worried about the next 3 months. Tampa's in a position where they know where they're going. I think they can take it or leave it on home ice advantage. I quite frankly don't think they care. If they have to go play in Toronto in a game 1, I think they're fine. If they're hosting it, great. They don't got to travel. But this group of players, I don't think is rattled by that. I thought they could be had last year. I think they're better this season than they were last year. I think they were fatigued last year. They played like it in that first round. At this point of last year, Tampa was just going through the motions. Tampa was never in a position to catch Toronto for second in the division. Never. Because Florida was out in front, then it was Toronto, and Tampa was just there. Every other team around them sucked so bad that it didn't matter. They were just going through the motions. This season, they are neck and neck with Toronto. They've been just as good as the Toronto Maple Leafs this season. Marner's been great. Nylander, they've had the same thing. Point's been phenomenal coming off his injury playoff last year. Kucherov's third in the NHL in points. Vasilevsky's getting win after win after win. Bringing in new players, Hagel, Nick Paul's career high in goals already. And we're only 40 games in. So, for everybody here, you know your position. You just got to prepare for it now. And for the Leafs, they got the Bruins on February 1st. They play them 2 more times, but the other matchups in late April, that game likely won't mean much. Those games, the Saturday night game, February 1st, which is, I believe, is a Wednesday, it's not about beating the team to catch them in the standings. It's about playing the team and seeing how you match up and what can you do to improve. Because of the new divisional format, you know the team that you play in the first round, Tampa, Toronto, whoever wins that will likely play Boston. So you are sizing yourself up against your first 2 rounds of opponents when you play Tampa and when you play Boston, and vice versa for all 3 here. So when you go toe-to-toe with these teams, you can look at what they do better than you and what you do better than them. How are we going to exploit them? What can our line combinations be? And it's a practice. It's a tutorial before you get to that game in April, May. Many teams aren't going to get this luxury. The way it's going, Colorado, I still think is going to make the playoffs. They're not going to be able to look at it and say, okay, let's match up, see how we do against Dallas tonight. Let's see how it goes, and we'll be prepared for this in April. No, they'll just be happy to be in the dance. They'll be happy to do it. Minnesota doesn't have that luxury. These teams, the teams in the Atlantic, you do. Carolina's getting to that point where they'll be looking at wildcard teams saying, do we want Washington or do we want Pittsburgh potentially? Because I think 5 Metro teams are going to make the playoffs. Which team do we want more? Which team do we have the better chance of beating? So you have that opportunity now to do that because of the way the playoffs are set up. It's not a great format, but to be fair, if the season ended today, the Toronto Maple Leafs and Tampa Bay Lightning would meet in the first round in the 1-8 format. So same way you're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. Be prepared for the matchup. You know it's coming. They're not changing the playoff format by April. Put up, shut up. Look at your team, improve it. Before we get off the Maple Leafs, they had some news yesterday where they announced that Nick Robertson, the former great Team USA World Junior Hockey player, is out for the season with season-ending shoulder surgery, and he will be out a minimum of 6 months. So likely he'll be at training camp the start of next year. So another entire season wiped out for Maple Leafs prospect Nick Robertson. 2 thoughts here. He's been out for 6 weeks. Why didn't he have surgery before? I guess you're trying to prolong it, seeing if he can come back. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Nevertheless, I'm not a doctor, but if you ask the Canucks doctors, they don't really trust him out there either. So there's some question marks around that. But I've heard this labeled. I saw this written on Twitter, and I couldn't disagree with it more. The Maple Leafs have lost a potential playoff performer or a possible trade chip. No. No to both. Nick Robertson is many things. He's not an NHL player. Not yet. Do I think whenever he returned, he could have played and earned a spot? I don't know. If you're trying to win, Nick Robertson's not in the playoff lineup. And if you're trading away a piece, I don't want Nick Robertson. I'll take my chances with Matthew Nyes because he hasn't played a pro game yet, and he's still a prospect technically. I've seen enough of Nick Robertson where I don't see anything there. He's too small. He doesn't have an impact. The game isn't even physical anymore, and he's constantly hurt. His skill is not so earth-shattering that it makes him impenetrable, that he's always he's a can't-miss prospect. He can miss. And he's been a miss so far. He's not a miss. You're not missing him in the playoffs. This is not missing a trade chip because he's a throw-in piece. Nick Robertson's a throw-in piece in a trade. If you're doing a chicken trade, he's thrown in. Because you know what the team's Arizona says? You know what? We'll take a chance on him. We're going to stink for a while. We'll give him an opportunity to play. It's not because, we can't wait to have Nick Robertson in our facility. No. I don't see this as missing out on a potential piece that you can trade to improve your team. I don't see it that way. He's a fine AHLer. He was a really good junior player. But some guys just don't turn out to be NHL guys. Tua in Miami. He might not be meant to play football because he's just too small and he takes a beating. That's how I view him. He might be the same way, where he has all the heart, he has a lot of skill. But maybe, just maybe, he's not meant to play football. He's not meant to be a difference maker. Nick Robertson might be a great player over in Europe. It's not as physical a game. You have more opportunities. So that's how I view this situation. I feel bad for the kid. I do. But I'm just providing what I believe is the correct analysis here. This is not missing out on a trade piece, and this is not missing out on a player that was going to play in playoff time. Because he hasn't had any impact at the NHL level. Period. No impact, nothing that would signal that this guy is the future, that he's in the lineup. And if anybody's selling you that, it's like a used car that has no brakes. It's probably Chris Johnston, TSN guy. I joked with, I believe, were we talking about Mike Johnson or Chris Johnson with my uncle, who he said there's certain guys in sports where you're listening to them, and I think even if you're a fan of the team, you hate them because you know they're such a homer. Jack Edwards comes to mind for me. Skip Bayless when it comes to his love for the Dallas Cowboys, and it's so he can say how unbiased he is, and you know it's just a crock of shit. You can go through every sport. I mean, you can find it. Mike Francesa for the New York Yankees. Let's think of basketball. Oh, anybody. I mean, anybody that follows LeBron James, they kiss Nick Wright or, Shannon Sharp, Fox Sports. Chris Johnson's that for the Maple Leafs. I couldn't imagine. He pretends to be this insider, and he's not. He only breaks Leaf stories, and every time he gets interviewed, it's this. He smoozes them. He loves Kyle Dubas. Kyle Dubas can do no wrong. Genius. He's won nothing, by the way. Oh, my God. I'm sure he's a big Nick Robertson fan as well. Probably viewed him as a top 6 forward by the end of the year. But he won't get that opportunity, unfortunately. Also, the Leafs announced that Mac Hollowell, defenseman who got a cup of coffee this year, is out for 12 weeks, 3 months, with a fractured kneecap. Ugh. Heard about that injury? Does not sound fun. That does not sound like a fun recovery. Fractured kneecap. But, fins up for Mac Hollowell, because that does not sound fun. But he wasn't bad playing at the NHL level, honestly. He had a good cup of coffee with the Leafs. He might get another crack next season, but again, his season looking at playing at the American League and getting another opportunity is also effectively fait accompli. Now, the Maple Leafs are trying to improve their roster because they're stable. They know they're a good team. They have a chance to win the Stanley Cup, no doubt about it. Then there's this other organization that's also in Canada, a little bit of a warmer climate, a little more rain, and we come to Vancouver, British Columbia, where they're currently in the midst of a tidal wave of complete shit. They are a shit show of epic proportions. To think you go from Jimmy Benning, aka Jet Black, and Travis Green, or Jimmy Benning's making stupid signing after stupid signing, Garland, Ekman Larson. I went through it last week talking about all the crap that Jimmy Benning did. He was great content. I never wanted him to get fired because I just wanted to see every signing he made, every trade that was so clearly wrong. But eventually the Aquilini said, enough is enough. See you, Jimmy B. See you, Jet Black. We'll see you next time around the mountain. They then hire Jimmy Rutherford, who has built Stanley Cup winning teams, has been one of the most successful executives in NHL history, to come in to be the president of hockey ops in Vancouver. Since he's been there, he's hired Patrick Alvin, who I don't even know what he sounds like because apparently he's got a muzzle because he can't talk to the media. He's hired Crammy Granato, who you never hear from, who's assistant GM there. He hired 3 assistant general managers. One has already quit, one being a female. And since it's been keep Brock Besser, it's been keep JT Miller, Brucey Boudreau, where do you stand? And the team has been a colossal failure. So through all of this, Jimmy Rutherford said it's halfway through the month of January, which it was yesterday. Why don't I go meet with the media and let's talk about this team? So first thing, he talks about Brucey Boudreau, one of the most respected coaches in recent memory, one of the all-time great regular season win percentages in league history. And it has been easy. We saw Bruce's face on Saturday night after they lost to Florida. He looked completely defeated. He looked worn down. And Rutherford was asked about Bruce Boudreau's status as coach, job security. And Rutherford admitted 2 things: that they're looking at external candidates at this time, meaning Rick Tocchet, as I brought to your guys' attention last week, and also that, well, he's the coach for now. Well, yeah, that's that. So what he told us there is we're looking for new coaches, but yeah, he's our coach, which is a fact. I saw him on the bench the other game. So that's no real new information there. He's our coach now. Wow. That's an alarming thing. That took a lot of creative thinking to come up with that answer. But my big thing with the press conference, and we're going to get to the other key details, it's just stupidity. Why did they have it? Why did they have a press conference that said, just lose in peace, lose games, all this crap, your organization's a clown show? But they go through that. Then he says, well, I don't know if we're going to be able to keep Bo Horvat because he wants to get paid like he's played over the first number of years of his career. You know, we want to pay him like he was his first couple of years. He wants to get paid like he's having a career year. Who hasn't heard this story before? Chicken or the egg? Of course, the chicken is going to want to make more. He's going to want to make more eggs. The person buying the chicken just says, well, I seen the chicken lay 3 eggs today. You're saying he can lay, and the chicken says, I can lay 6. I'm worth more. Well, so basically saying, yeah, we think Bo Horvat's is gonna be overpaid. We don't want to pay him that. Okay, I get that. But then he also said, even with not signing Bo Horvat, we're looking at our expenses. We're likely going to be over the cap to start next year already at this point, looking ahead. This crap team is going to be over the cap because you got Brock Besser, you got JT Miller, you got Quinn Hughes, you got all these crap players signed long-term. That Rutherford has done some of these deals. He's not without blame. Why did you re-sign Brock Besser? Why did you trade for Connor Garland? Why did you re-sign JT Miller? Because through all of these statements, he then says, yeah, I looked at the team. This is a direct quote. I looked at the team and I thought we needed minor surgery. on this roster. I was wrong. We now need major surgery. I haven't done a good enough job at creating cap space. Couple things. Jimmy Rutherford is smarter at hockey than me. Absolutely. Stanley Cup champion. He's done it all. Pittsburgh, Carolina. You know his resume. But how you don't look at this team coming into it and say, this team needs open heart fucking surgery and not a repair of my meniscus, I don't know. How you don't look at this team and say, our defense is god-awful. Our defense is overpaid. Our forward group is lazy. Thank God we got Thatcher Demko because he does everything to keep us in games. The lack of awareness at looking at the situation and saying, we don't need major changes to this team? We don't need major changes? I don't understand how you don't put two and two together. I don't understand how that's not just plainly obvious to anybody that knows hockey. So what have you been doing since you got hired, Jim Rutherford? You hired all these people that don't speak. We know nothing of what they do. Are they scouting? Are they making deals? Are they doing this? Are they signing these contracts? Patrick Alvin is the GM. He might as well be scrubbing the floor. We never hear from him. Ever. Montreal has Ken Hughes, and they got their president. We hear from both, but we hear more from Ken Hughes. He's got a say in what they're doing. It's all Jim Rutherford. Why are you coming out and speaking? You're only putting more attention on yourself that you're saying that you've been failing. You're admitting it publicly. So, not having that awareness of the team that's around you? Is this ownership telling you that you can't tank? Because quite honestly, if I'm Jim Rutherford, he has enough cachet, he can just say, I'm not taking the job. I don't think he needs a check. He resigned in Pittsburgh. He could still be working there. It didn't have to be Ron Hextall and Brian Burke. He decided, we're going to rebuild, we're going to retool. I'm leaving. You go to Vancouver and you look at it and say, well, we don't need a change here. This roster's good enough to win. I can add pieces. I can re-sign Brock Besser, do all these things. No. You still got Tyler Myers. You still got Connor Garland, who's overpaid. You have a lot of crap that makes it very difficult to win when you have these building blocks in front of you that are built with spikes that are going to go through your tires. If the Canucks were a car right now, they'd be a Ford because they're a piece of shit. Ugly interior, ugly exterior. The people building the vehicle, we don't trust them. And through all of this, with their team building, with their structure when it comes to management, which still makes no sense to me and I have zero clarity on how it works there, they currently have a player that's fighting with the team over how his medical situation was handled. Tanner Pearson was told he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a hand injury. Now he's out for the season. And now they're saying he may never play again. He's got a serious injury. He may never play again, Tanner Pearson. They're talking about it. Quinn Hughes is saying it's unfortunate that they got this wrong. The organization. Players are not trusting the team doctors in Vancouver. Arizona, in their 5,000-seat university barn rink, are more stable than the Vancouver Canucks. Chicago's more stable. Any of these crap organizations that just lose constantly, they have much more stability right now than the Vancouver Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks are the most unorganized, underprepared, and quite frankly, stupid organizations in the NHL. They don't have leadership. They don't have funding. They don't have any sense of who they are as a team. They are now just coming to the realization that you suck, that you got bad contracts, that you got nothing to build on. What? Who's been serving the drinks over there? For me, don't double down on mistakes. In life, if you've made a wrong hire, if you look at somebody, you're in the wrong career, get out of it. Why stay somewhere if you're not happy? You live life once. I try to be as happy as I can. I'm a curmudgeon, but that's how I view life. Aquilini family, Jim Rutherford had all the cachet. He was looked at. Yes, he's done very good work in Carolina and Pittsburgh. I don't trust this man to tear down my roster. I don't trust this man as a president to do it the right way. Because the way he's handled business in his tenure in Vancouver has been nothing short of incompetent. He is not running this. I would fire him. Patrick Allvin hasn't proven anything at the NHL level either. I get that. That's the fear, certainly. That you don't know who you're bringing in. Here's a thought. The New Jersey Devils were competitive for a really long time. With Marty Brodeur, Scott Niedermayer. Yes, they went through their tough stretches. But through all that, they had a pretty good general manager in Ray Shero. He's worked for other organizations, but I think Ray Shero is a very good general manager in the NHL. You do want somebody with experience running this, but you want somebody that's had a teardown, that's had to get rid of bad contracts from a roster, that's gone through this and came out the other side. So, why not hire Ray Shero? Why not bring him in? He knows how this goes. He can help with this. Let Patrick Allvin, let Cameron Granato do their jobs. But to me, banking on Jim Rutherford making the right decisions right now, it's a stupid bet. Don't double down on mistakes in life. When you see a mistake, rectify it or do what you can to avoid making it again. When somebody teaches you something, they don't want to teach you it again. You teach a kid to tie their shoes, you hope that they can figure it out. Look both ways before you cross the street. Simple life lessons. Look at the way a person's handled business. Look at the way a person has handled dealing with their colleagues. Do you think Bruce Boudreau loves Jim Rutherford? Do you think they'll love the way he's been handled by Jim Rutherford, talked about publicly? It's been demeaning. It's been as if Bruce Boudreau is just a lame duck coach that has no respect, that has not been one of the great regular season coaches in the history of the sport. He is the top 3 winning percentage in regular season history in the NHL. Bruce Boudreau. And Jim Rutherford talks to him like he's subservient, like he's a nobody. He's our coach for now. That's a slap in the face. That's basically saying, yeah, we got you for now, we'll pay you, and we're going to fire you, okay? Go out there and do this now so I can get rid of you later. People quit in the summer. A female assistant GM that he had understaffed for 3 weeks quit. Why? Why was it that quick of a dismissal? You don't have team doctors that you trust. I'm not putting it all on Jim Rutherford. I'm not saying Bruce Boudreau has been fantastic as a head coach this year. But I think he's been professional. I haven't heard him complain about his roster. He's tried to push buttons to make this team better. He walked into an impossible situation that was very difficult. And I think Rick Tocchet would be a smart hire. That's a Jim Rutherford idea. Jim Rutherford was there with Rick Tocchet in Pittsburgh, where Rick Tocchet was the assistant coach after winning 2 Stanley Cups together. But Jim Rutherford is great when he's dealing where his team is trying to win. or he can make moves to put the team over the top to win a Stanley Cup. Adding Jeff Carter out of nowhere. Adding players to your roster to help you win. He needs to subtract players now. He needs to get contracts off this roster. He has not succeeded at that in his career. It's a tougher position to be in. The successful ones are few and far between because you flame out doing it. You get halfway through that rebuild and you're thrown off. That's why you look at Steve Yzerman's, you look at Lou Lamoriello's in the past, where they built something back up or they had a crap roster and you had to do something. To credit to Kyle Dubas for helping do it. But getting rid of contracts, getting rid of talent to be bad, to tank, and then be in a position to build that roster back up, it's the way it works. Because you need that initial base. And Ray Shero might not be the best candidate. He would be somebody I would look at if I'm Vancouver. This whole organization just stinks right now. Nothing about it is a positive thing. You want a new vision. You want new optimism. You don't want the day to start with everybody looking around and it's just constantly negative. And that's what I think of the team right now. Players aren't happy. They don't trust team doctors. Bruce Boudreau looks like he wants to die every time he does it. He meets with the media. Jim Rutherford's dismissing people. He's saying we need major surgery. No shit. The players are unhappy. Coach is unhappy. Rutherford's is just negativity, negativity, negativity. Bring in a new sense of optimism, but all while knowing we are going to be tearing this down. We are going to be moving pieces off this roster. Brock Besser won't be on this team next year. Tyler Myers hopefully won't be on this team next year. We may have to trade Quinn Hughes to get better so that we can tank, so we can fully commit to this. There are people that are afraid to rebuild. They have to say retool, or they're afraid to say that to their fan base. And Jim Rutherford said that yesterday. He would not say rebuild. That could be a marketing thing. That could be a buzzword that teams are just not willing to use. For the city of Vancouver and that fan base, hearing the word rebuild should be like hearing the word lottery, winning it, Lotto Max, because that's the only way this team is going to get better. This core of this team is not going anywhere. And if the argument is, well, if Thatcher Demko was healthy all this year, we wouldn't. You know, he wouldn't have, because your roster just simply isn't good enough. But they need to make changes, and it's an ugly, ugly situation right now in Vancouver. And I'd fire Jim Rutherford because I hate the way he's handled business, and I think he's a big part of the mass paranoia and a bad feeling there. He's great at building winners. He's not great at tearing down crap teams. Deal with that situation. Now, speaking of frontrunners, we got one on the line here. Rocking a Tuesday jersey, rocking the Mitch Marner after, I don't think, putting up any points on Saturday night. So it's an odd jersey to pull out after yet another loss at the TD Garden. We got Shamus Fillmore. Shamus celebrating a hot L, I see.
I'd say hello to you, but instead of Juggy, your new name for this podcast is actually going to be the Midnight Rider, because you have been riding midnights for quite some time with all these late ones. I pulled up the podcast this morning, do my usual going to work, listen to what you have to say, recap the NFL weekend, and here you are at midnight. Interesting time choice. So you had some insomnia problems, which, I mean, it's nothing new for you, but it was good. It was good. As for the L, yeah, I mean, we can get into the Leafs front and center. This is a new jersey for me. This is why I'm wearing it, just
fresh
because.
one.
Yeah, this is This is from the girlfriend and the fam for our trip that's going in
Right.
February. Thanks to you with your recommendations. So
Mhm.
this is
Shalom.
why it all comes right back around. That's why I wanted to wear it.
No, it looks good. It does. It looks
Thank you.
sharp. The A really pops. Like you can see, I find that's my big takeaway is it's in a good way though. Like I find it draws you in.
Oh, thanks. Yes, yeah. No, it's definitely a little bit more authentic than the usual jerseys I'm wearing, which are stitched somewhere in another part of the world. But maybe that's for a conversation for a new day. How are things with you?
Other than my insomnia, it's pretty good. Weather's been shit, so that was I spent the last couple days chiseling out ice to get rid of it to get to pavement so that in their next storm there isn't more snow on ice and you got people falling and injuries because I'm all about the people, as you know.
Yeah,
So
completely.
been doing that. So I actually broke through a lot of that today, so that was productive. But your Leafs, in the Leafs Bruins game was a lot of fun Saturday night. Lived up to the hype for sure. And what were your main takeaways from that game?
My main takeaway was that Linus Allmark is a beast. I mean, he was on my top five last week when I had him, and he just kind of
Mm,
lived up to that expectation that I had in my mind. And he played unbelievable. Any opportunity felt like it was taken away. And Matt Murray had some good saves on his own end as well. He played a fair game to say the most part against a really really good Boston team. I mean, some people say the Pastrnak goal. Okay, maybe you should have had that one. It was kind of a fake shot where Pastrnak was basically looking at the other guy that when it was on a 2-on-1, who I
yeah.
forget whether it was either it would have been Bergeron or maybe even Marchand, and instead of passing it, he shot it. When yeah, I mean, it completely surprised Murray, and we'll get into him later and how we feel about him in this heart race and this pace that he's on for goals and everything. But yeah, my main takeaway from the game was that we don't have a number one D. We don't have a guy that can just shut down the other team's best player, and we don't have a guy that's even significant or great in his own end. And there's no courtesy. There's no shot on Giordano, who's played well as of late. He cuts down block shots, but he doesn't do it on all ends of the ice because he's just older. He's
Mhm.
40. He's the oldest player in the NHL right now. And yeah, Morgan Reilly is just not there. He's no longer my guy, and I'm worried. They inked him
Mhm.
to a large deal at 7.5 per year. Not looking good. Not a good signing by Dubas, in my opinion.
Yeah, since he came back from injury, he kind of looks like the Billy Madison, the puppy that lost his way a little bit. And I will say pairing him with Timmins is not a smart pair. These two guys are too similar to be put on the same defense pair where you have better defensive options in Hall, Giordano, as you just mentioned. Even one of the kids probably would have been a better
Mm,
option. But I hated the pair. Obviously, the two of them on that pass on that goal, both of them were in, obviously the Timmins pass is inexcusable. But
mm.
Morgan Reilly was basically on the boards, and the other side. I don't know why he's not in the middle of the ice, and he's out to lunch talking to Tessa Virtue or whatever he's doing on that play. But I agree with you. He just doesn't look confident. He's not decisive, and I don't expect them to add a defenseman like a Josh Manson or anybody like that because that's just not the way their team's built, and they're going to go down with with the ship, so to speak. I'm almost starting to think that Jacob Chikrin is now more of a possibility than he ever has been. I didn't buy into it. I think it's back into the vortex now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, and this is gonna be a hot take, maybe a hot take of the day for me. I feel like their decor got worse with Morgan Reilly in it, right? Like he's
Yeah,
turning pucks over, he's making really strange and irresponsible plays. And I don't know. I like their decor before. I know that sounds strange where you got guys like Justin Hall and Giordano on your top line, top
right.
pairing, eating 20 minutes a night, but they did it. I mean, they did a great job, and yeah, he's not been that guy. And we could go back to when he was signed last year and it got that extension, but maybe there wasn't a market for a number one D man. But maybe instead of giving him that money, maybe you settle for something a little less and hoping that in the next couple of years that it might, you know what I mean, that you would end up someone freeing up and being able to take them, which is obviously a gamble. But I think Leaf Nation and the Leaf media love Morgan Reilly too much, and it looked like such a stab in the back to their fan base if they just got rid of him at this point. So I think he had Dubas by the balls with that contract, and yeah, you can see why it's not paying off right now.
Would Chychrun be somebody that you consider?
I think he would help in certain areas. I think he would have to adjust his game not to be so offensive and buy into a much more structured system. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Arizona has got the best system in the world where it worked for him and Gostisbehere and whoever else they have on the back end. But obviously, he's got to buy into a more team friendly style of play, which I don't know if he has in his game, but. He's a good player and he does a lot of great things. If it was up to me, I'd want someone who is a little bit more responsible in his own zone. But because I think you have Sandin now, like I think Sandin can be a power play guy, and he's got good vision. He can pass the puck. If he's not great in his own end, well, hopefully he just plays in the other team's end. And that's the only way I can see that. But I'd rather have him on the ice right now than Morgan Reilly.
Certainly on the power play. The Reilly being on the power play is just nepotism, basically. Like you said, it's people loving him. Sandin's better. He's better at moving the puck. He's better up top. I think he's better at finding players. Let's say this. Let's do it through this thought experiment. If they got a Chychrun, if they get another defenseman of consequence that is in the lineup guaranteed. So you'd have Reilly, player X, the two kids. You got Hall, Giordano, missing one, Brody.
Yeah.
Who's coming out?
Oh, you can't pull this. You can't pull the $7.5 million guy out, Midnight Rider. That's not going to happen.
I think it's got to be one of the kids. I don't want to sit Hall.
Maybe.
Hall's played really well lately.
Yeah, for a guy who shit on Hall most of his career, especially in Game 7 in the playoffs last year, I can eat my words a little bit and say that he's actually been kind of good this year. Better than normal, better than his average, I would say.
Yeah.
So I would have to say Liljegren if I had to pick one. And I don't like that because there's times where Liljegren looks like a really good player. I mean, he snuck in once in the Nashville game for almost a backdoor tap in on a great Sandin pass. Right. And, I didn't love him having them down there low, but if he would have scored, well, that would have put them up to 2-1 and kind of would have shut it down. But yeah, he does some good things out there, and it's kind of shitty that we kind of have to take him out once in a while. I mean, Timmins is obviously not part of that conversation. You didn't even bring up his name, which rightfully so. He's the 8th guy probably there, but yeah, I'd have to say Liljegren if I had to. And then you could do like a Giordano. I don't know. You could do like a Giordano, Hall, maybe Jacob Chychrun, and then maybe you place him with a Sandin. I'm not sure. I don't know what the best combination would be out of those 6 guys.
Yeah, better chance to get another defenseman or get a bottom 6 forward, because I think they need one of those two.
Yeah, they need both. I mean, unfortunately, I don't know. You try to hit 2 birds with 1 stone and get a friendly deal that takes both of those needs, but I don't know how that works. If you trade for Jacob Chychrun, who's the guy in Arizona that is going to beef up that bottom 4? The only guy I can think of off the top of my head, maybe Travis Boyd.
Bustad, maybe?
Nick Bustad. Yeah, he's a big guy. He's slow, but he's I guess he brings a different element. He brings the body. And they're not going to bring Richie back. That'd be kind of interesting. Just lose him 1 year just to bring him up another year. But Arizona's got a couple of guys who, may be able to produce a little offense, but maybe a little different. I wanted to get your take on him because he did play, and he does play a more physical game. What's your thoughts on Dryden Hunt's first few games as a part of the Blue-White?
Yeah.
No?
No.
I don't mind him. I like he does throw the body around, and he does play a little physical, so it's not a bad thing.
I think he thinks he's tougher than what he is.
Oh, for sure he is, but
because he fought Noshek. Noshek might as well be fighting me. You're gonna Noshek was just like turtle there. But I he's okay. He's better than Jerry Malgin. Don't get me wrong. Of course, it's a no brainer that
Yeah.
trade. But I think Simmons brings something to the table that they don't have. Like I liked seeing Simmons fight Saturday night, and yes, that's
Mhm.
old Neanderthal thinking, but that brought a moment to the game. Like that was a respectful bout. Him and Nick Foligno. I love the tap at the end from both guys. A lot of respect there. They're friends. And yes, he's slow and he's not going to be great all the time, but I think he brings an energy to the game that even Hunt doesn't in their bottom of their lineup.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like you can't have him too far in the lineup or we start complaining about him, but you can put him in once in a while for a game like this and he's perfect, right? Because he just brings that greasy element that they need in games like this because every time I see Marchand's poking at somebody, he's cross-checking somebody, he's chirping somebody, and you need a little Wayne Simmons to combat that because Matthews, Marner, Tavares, for God's sure, is not saying anything back to their top players and trying to get under their skin. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean you're 100% right. He's good, and he got a great and another example of Allmark being great. There was a pass from Hunt behind the net. I thought it was a for sure goal. I thought it was going 5-hole or maybe he slipped through the pads, and Allmark gulped it up. He was like what's that gooey stuff kids play with?
Slime.
Slime. He was slime because he just consumed everything when he was in net.
What are you thinking for tonight? Leafs, Panthers.
No Marner, I believe, and a couple other guys out the lineup, but I'm not too worried. I'm going to go on a limb and say Bobrovsky's in that.
He played yesterday, so I think it'll be.
Oh, so
I think
it's
it'll be
tonight. Okay.
Spence. They're on a back-to-back.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about the Martin Luther King Jr. games. No, I think that they'll be okay. I think if they went into battle with Boston, I don't know why they can't beat a team like Florida, but who knows? Florida could lay an egg on them. They've shown that they still want to make the playoffs, and they're not out. Not that they're the laughing stock, but it's so interesting because of that unconditional first-round pick that Montreal holds, right? So they're going to try and do their best to creep away from that end of the standings so they don't end up looking like losers.
Can you think of that? Montreal, much to your chagrin, could get Connor Bedard because you traded Ben Sherratt.
That's hard for me. It's hard for me to fathom right now because this is a team that won the President's Trophy last year and was the best team in the league, I guess, standing wise.
And they won the trade too because Tkachuk's been unreal.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's not Tkachuk's fault. I don't know. They need to grab a defenseman for sure to help out because Bobrovsky. What's that?
We need about 3 of them.
Yeah, I guess he could use more than one. That's why I said at the beginning of the year, I said Jacob Chicharron would be a better fit here than some other places because he's just so needed. Like a top 2 defenseman is needed in this organization more now than ever.
Evander Kane back in the lineup for the Oilers tonight. Big move for them, although Yamamoto comes out, so addition by subtraction, I guess.
Mm-hmm. He hasn't been that good this year.
Yeah, no, but again, they don't got a lot. To be
fair.
That means more minutes for Jesse Puljujarvi, which nobody wants, especially me as a viewer. I think this is a big deal for the Oilers. I'm curious to see how he looks because he hasn't played in a long time and he had a serious injury. But if they've won some games in a row here, they've got a little momentum. But if they're going to do anything this year, Evander Kane's going to be a big part of them turning that corner.
Yeah, it's really been 4 guys lifting the load offensively, especially. And with taking Kane out, they really don't have any toughness. Let's be honest. Maybe Darnell Nurse because he's not doing as much offensively, but they don't really have a guy that can say, okay, we got to keep our head on a swivel when we're out on the ice because this guy is going to be a threat. Right. And I think that plays a major factor into the way they play too. So, yeah, he was playing really well before, obviously that tragic accident with Patrick Maroon and, slitting his wrist open. If he can come back and his hands are good, he is going to be a major addition, and they absolutely need him as things tighten up in the Western Conference.
And, since we talked about it last week, Jack Campbell's won 3 straight starts.
Yeah.
He's
shoving it up
starting.
my hoop.
He's starting it tonight.
Yeah, yeah. He
But
loves to shove.
this
Go
was
ahead.
smart. They had to start him. They had to keep. We talked about it. I just think you have to give him some confidence. And this is a perfect game tonight. He beat Vegas Saturday. That's a big win. And
Mm-hmm.
now the Kraken are on a back-to-back. They've had the schedule the NHL has given them. 7 straight road games. Then you play one home game against Tampa. Then you got to fly to Edmonton after the game yesterday. Screwing
Yeah.
with my Kraken. But do that to them, and now you get a back-to-back. This is a good time to give Campbell another start to continue to boost that confidence.
Yeah, I mean, the guy, he literally rides on emotion, right? So when he's playing hot, he's playing hot. And you take it back to last year with the Leafs. I mean, there was no one hotter maybe through the first
Yep.
half of the season than Jack Campbell, and he was riding an all-time high. And then obviously he cooled down after injuries and some maybe porous play, not all on his fault. I think the Leafs had something to do with that, but this is what you got to do. And I mean, they're battling right now with Calgary,
Yeah.
Seattle, and LA. Is that their kind of main competition? So
Basically, yeah.
yeah. So I mean and on top of that, if they are battling for wild card spots, look at the two teams in the Central that are kind of creeping up. You got St. Louis and Nashville, who maybe I'm going to touch on one of those teams a little later, but they're also not going to. I mean, they've played well of recent, and they're going to try and battle for a spot because I mean their team's not. They're not bad enough to tank for a top 5 pick, so they got to try and creep in there somehow.
Looking at the teams in the middle for East Conference, yeah, I wanted to talk about this. Did any teams that are kind of on the outside looking in? So we talk about Buffalo, we talk about Florida, out west, Nashville, St. Louis, Colorado to a certain extent. Do you look at any of these teams that are outside looking now that will be in the playoffs come the end of the year?
Maybe this is my little bit my hubris because they were my pick to make to the Cup final, but I still got Nashville trying to creep in there. I think they played well of late. I watched a lot of the Nashville and Leafs game last week and tried to catch as many games as I have. And really, the biggest thing is just no offense. They've just got nothing offensively to go off of. They're I would say, one of the worst teams power play wise. And yeah, like they've got those two big guys in the middle. Well, not even the middle. I think they play on the same line now. Duchesne and Johansson. Both make $8 million. Both have not played up to those contracts. It's kind of going back to a couple of years ago where we consistently complained about how these two guys fail over and over again. And now they're kind of doing it after a great season last season. It kind of seems like they're back in their old ways.
I love their goaltending, as you
Absolutely.
do. But yeah, I watched them play against your Leafs, and they're big, they're heavy for sure, and I'm sure teams would love to have Tanner Jeannot on their team because he's a rare breed in the NHL. But yeah, they got nothing that scares you offensively. Yossi has to do a lot, and he's getting older too. Yossi's getting to his late 30s.
Quite 30. Yeah, he's you feel like he's been in the league forever, but I mean, it's because he has.
Yeah, 35 or 36, wherever he is now. So
Yeah.
he's getting older. Their GM's been their GM since the team started.
Yeah.
So, Colorado would scare the hell out of me if I'm teams out there because, yes, they played poorly all year. But what I will say is Georgiev's been really good all season. His numbers have been consistently good. There's just been nobody that could score goals. McKinnon's back. Landeskog hasn't played a game. Nikushkin's been out for a long time. And quietly, Mikko Rantanen has been one of the best players in the NHL. He's got 29 goals on the year, and he's been carrying that team on his back. Colorado, if they get in, they're as scary as anybody because the Central's wide open.
Yeah. They got to thank the Big Fin, the Moose, they call him in Colorado, because like you said, McKinnon and Landeskog have been out for quite a period now. The Nate Dogg is back, but it was Rantanen really carrying the load offensively and carrying them through some tougher games at the beginning of the season, through some tougher matchups. So, yeah, I mean, that they're definitely a team that you got to be scared of, because if they wake up, I mean, they could easily take this division, maybe this conference, by surprise, to be honest.
Yeah.
Another team I got, the Sleepy Pens. I have beside them. The band is back together. These kind of feel like the Eagles back in the '80s when Glenn Fry and Don Henley and Joe Walsh and the boys kind of got back together for the reunion after spending some time apart. What's that?
That's a deep cut.
Yeah, well, and they really didn't spend any time away from each other. It was just an off season where everyone thought they were going to fall apart, but they kind
Right.
of said, "Hey, we're going to go on one little run here and see what happens." So, yeah, for their team, I guess it's I looked it up. It's close games. They can't win any close matchups. They lose yesterday to OT to the Ducks. Like you
Yeah.
can't lose to the Ducks. I'm sorry, that's not a team that you can afford to lose to. Looking on the outside and trying to get in. And on top of that, they've won 2 OT or shootout games this year, and whatever it is, 10, maybe 9, 10 matchups. You got to
Hmm.
be better. You got Sidney Crosby, you got Evander Malkin, you've got some studs on there. You got to find a way to win close games. That's been the biggest problem for these guys.
Yeah, if they get in, they'd scare me because they got a good team, and I think they will. I think they will. 'Cause to me, they're a better team than Washington. They're close, but I think Pittsburgh, top to bottom, is just a better team than Washington. I like their goaltending a little bit more. Their back end is better than Washington's for sure. Eric Gustafson, I'm not relying on him enough of Eric Gustafson. I'm sick of hearing his name, but they certainly. I agree with you there because to me, like the slander with New Jersey, it's over. Like enough. Like people, oh, Jersey's gonna fall off. Oh, Jersey stinks. Right around Christmas, people started putting that into the air. Everybody that hated that Jersey was winning, and now look at them now, Shay. Out west, doesn't matter who they play. They just win, crush yesterday, win another game. Oh, we're going to overtime, San Jose. We'll give them a free point. Bedard sweepstakes, screw them out of another draft pick. Jersey. That's just what they do. I mean, they're right there with Carolina. Like to their credit, they're right there. And I don't. They might not do anything in the playoffs because I don't love the way they're built when it comes to a physical standpoint. But to me, they're making the playoffs.
Yeah, I can't agree with you on the Carolina comparison. I think there's one team that's maybe a head and shoulders above the other, but I can see what you mean by the slander. That there's a lot of people talking down on them, but these guys did it without Palat for a
Yeah.
long time, and that guy's coming back. You
Yeah.
want to talk about a guy who's probably hot and horny to get on this team
Oh,
and
he's
to
horny.
start playing. Like
Yep.
the New Jersey Devils look like they're having fun. To your point, fun doesn't always win hockey games. That's you can refer back to Boston and how hard they have to grit grind through a lot of their playoff series. New Jersey's not grit grinding through anything, so yeah, it's going to be difficult when I see April.
The Rangers starting to turn a corner.
I always think so, and then I always go, the Rangers, they're just more of the same, or they're just back to normal. I
Yeah.
looked up their stats the other day. They've got 4 or 5 guys with like having great seasons, and including Philip Hedl, who I want to give a little love to because he's kind of developed. He wasn't part of he was part of the kids line, I guess, to his credit, but he wasn't the guy. Like he wasn't the first, second round overall pick. He was just kind of the check guy. Maybe came the first, second round, but he's
Hmm.
slowly developing into a really reliable center on both ends of the ice. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's to me, I don't know. I don't know what to think of New York because I love them, but in
Yeah.
that tight division, I don't know if they'll withstand all those teams.
They got so many guys that are just not reliable. Krasov, Kako.
Krasov, let's just put it on the table. This Krasov guy, he's not good.
He's a bust.
He's
He's
a
a bust.
bust first rounder, and
Yeah.
they just can't accept that.
And every time you think he does something well, he gets injured the next game. That's his.
Yeah,
That's his deal. He gets fucking hit, and then he's out for 6 weeks. He's
he's
a
sick.
bust. Lafreniere is a mid-pack player, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he's a first overall pick that's not going to be that great,
Mm-hmm.
not yet, anyway. I agree with you about Hedel. Keandre Miller. Oh, my
Yeah.
crush on him gets more and more every time I watch. I love him. I love him like a son. He's playing so fantastic right now. It's incredible.
Mm,
But they lose these frustrating games. Like they lost to Montreal on Sunday night. You can't lose to Montreal. Like
no.
Montreal stinks. They got two guys that can score goals.
Yeah,
And
that's
basically,
it. They got 2 players.
they got two. Everybody else is on LTIR for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
But and Samuel Montembaum is starting games. But yeah, oh, I also want to bring up this team with you. This team is not going to make the playoffs, but they're an interesting little case study.
Okay.
Ottawa.
The pesky
Off-season
Sens.
hype that I didn't think they'd make the playoffs, but I thought they'd be better than they are. They're not going to make it again. DeBrincat's going to be an RFA. Are
Yeah.
they going to be able to afford him? I don't know.
Yeah.
And, you look at the team, they got a lot of talent. Their defense still stink. Ottawa, how do you look at this season for Ottawa? Like, it's another one. Like, do you sell at the deadline? Like, what's your approach if you're Pierre Dorian?
I don't know if you can justify to the fan base if you just keep selling off. Like, you mean, yeah, you can get rid of the no-name guy here or there, but
Right.
great that they signed Artem Zub. I think that was signed that they committing to a guy who can be a number 3, 4 defenseman on their team for years to come.
Yep.
They need to do more than that. Obviously, we've said this from the beginning of the season. I feel like they've actively looked for a defenseman and they just couldn't find something that that satisfied needs. But yeah, like Midnight Rider, they're not great. And is DeBrincat going to get shares to the Sens when he buys them with Ryan Reynolds? I don't know. Like, that's the only way you keep him around. Like,
Right.
DeBrincat's a 30, 35 goal scorer maybe without Patty Kane.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long he's going to want to stick around and stink it up with the boy. And I don't doubt they have a good locker room. I think the culture there is good, but I just think that something needs to change, whether it's Pierre, whether it's DJ Smith, who I love, but something has got to change in order for this team to be successful.
Yeah, and it's tough to sell because you have so many guys locked up long term. You got Norris, Batherson's locked up, Timmy Stutz, who you're not
Yeah.
trading, but he's locked up. Shabbat is locked up. You mentioned Artem Zub. They gave Talbot an extension, I believe.
Brady Kachuk.
Brady Kachuk is locked. Like Pinto, you don't want to, and you don't really want to trade any of these guys either because I like a lot of
Yeah.
these players too, but you're still not winning. You might have to trade these pieces. This might be a summer team where you make a big trade with one of these guys to get a defenseman because you are desperate to get them. They don't have. I feel bad for Shabbat because he isn't playing well, but he's pressing. He's doing way too much because he knows there's nothing around him.
Yeah. He's basically he's overworking himself to the point where he's
Yeah,
probably going to be gassed by the end of the season. And then, I mean, they're really going to start to lose because they know it's all they got. It brings into an interesting conversation about what they do with DeBrincat. If they get the vibe that he's not going to stick around, well,
trade chip.
yeah, great offensive player just hit the market. And I'm sure a lot of teams are going to be interested in what Ottawa would, get for them, including a defenseman, like you said.
What about him to New York for
That
Keandre?
works.
For Keandre,
Oh, that's a very attractive deal for a lot of Ottawa fans, I'm sure.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I like it.
He reunites with your boy, the bread man.
Yeah, the cat,
The cat, yeah.
the kitty cat. I think I don't know if this is the greatest fit, but I do enjoy the fact. I do like the thought process of trying to get back a player like Miller because you don't, he's going to be a guy who's going to be there for multiple,
Yes.
hopefully a generation. You know what I mean? Miller might not be number one, but he'd be a great number two in my mind. Or maybe he one day develops into a number one. And that's the kind of player you're trying to get on a back end. There's so many generational players now that run a blue line, but like very
Mm-hmm.
few are going to be available for trade. Let's be honest.
If you were Minnesota, would you trade Matt Dumba at the trade deadline or keep him because you think you have a chance to win?
I know. I feel like I'm in the mind of Billy G a little bit. He's a Star Wars fan. I'm a Star Wars fan.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think he keeps him, but I don't think it's the right play because I think he's gone.
He
I don't
is for
think
sure.
I don't think he's going to stay, and they're not going to win. I like their team. I don't love their team. They don't have enough to get past it. Although I do love the signing of Matt Boldy. I think that was really, really good
Uh-huh.
and a good player to come for a lot of years.
Yeah, agreed. And I watched them a fair amount, and I love big players, as you know, but Eriksson Ek, Greenway, Marcus Foligno, and Ryan Reeves all in the same team, it's a bit much, you know.
Yeah, I thought you would love that.
Yeah, I'd love it 15 years ago.
Yeah,
It's a bit much now. When you look at Winnipeg, and Winnipeg is a good. They're really. I've watched a lot of them lately. They got your Leafs this week, I believe, Thursday night. That should be a fun game. Florida will be okay tonight, but that's the game of the week for those two teams, because those are two teams that I think legitimately could win a cup. Your Leafs, of course, and Winnipeg, because I look at the Central, they're as much as favored as anybody, because Colorado's been underwhelming. Dallas is good, but again, they've proven nothing. And you mentioned Minnesota. I think Dallas and Winnipeg are both better than Minnesota right now.
Yeah, agreed.
So you're fighting for even. It might be smarter to get second in that division to play Minnesota potentially, because there might be a team that wins the division, wins the Central, even a Vegas. Say you win your division out there, you might get Colorado in the first round if they're a wild card team. That is no win. That's a loss.
Yeah, doesn't that seem so bizarre that like this playoff setting, and I've said this for quite a while, it's just not, it just doesn't work in my mind. It's just kind of frustrating. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Phoenix Suns. I watched them for 2.5 quarters yesterday before they got down by about 20. They are now right there with the Lakers. Right there with the Lakers for 12th in the West. They're outside the play-in. Yes, they're battered, but who knows if health will return. Are they going to miss the playoffs, Shay?
No, I think they'll make the play-in. I think they'll make the play-in, and I think they'll get in a late seed. But yeah, injuries have just kind of buckled this team. You've seen it. There was no Payne last night. There was no Booker. There was no Jay Crowder hasn't played all year. And I'm not saying Jay Crowder is a key piece to their team. It's not like he runs the offense or does anything, but he at least can be physical and play some defense out there, which is what they need. And he can shoot from three. He's a 3-and-D guy. He's the definition of his role now. I love Bridges. He's a great player. I think he's a great role player. You can't ask too much out of him. That's just not his game. He's not going to do that. Torrey Craig, I'm sorry. Who knows who Torrey Craig is? Like I just said that name and I don't even know who I'm talking about. It's just too many no names out here. And they've got my boy Bismack Miambo, boards, but
crashing.
He crashes those boards. Yeah. But they just don't have enough. Yeah, like they're really going to struggle to get into a play-in. If they were healthy, they could win a play-in role. I believe that should be a problem for them. But further than that, I think they get dusted in whatever first round. Because you look at the top four in the West right now, and you're like, God, like I can't see any of these teams losing, and eventually they have to play each other.
Sacramento, number 4, looking strong. Another win. They can score 130 with anybody, I'll tell you that. But Memphis, they're a good team. They're a really good team.
Yeah, it's crazy because I did a comparison on D Rose's numbers when he won the MVP back in 2011, and Ja Morant is by far, even some of the underlining stats, is by far better. And he's not going to win it because he's competing with Tatum, Jokic, whoever else. But who?
LeBron.
Oh, you're not going to throw that into the mix, are you?
Look what he's doing.
I'm not saying he's not impressive. It's just his team is just so like he's the only guy out there. He had to put up 50 points. He had to put up 50 points so they could win yesterday against Houston.
For Christ's sake. Yeah.
That's pathetic. Like Tatum put up 50 points, but like at least it was against a crappier Hornets team, which it's not that more important.
Don't give me that. The Hornets stink.
They play up to the hype, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's tough. Like I love Memphis. Love their bench. Brandon Clark, Tyus Jones.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blank on his name. There's a really good player I'm thinking of. It's a Euro. Anyways, they just got it. They got it rolling on their bench. They play great. They play great offensively. Obviously, they've got two of the best guards in the league in my mind. Even Bane, like he took some time off, but he can be a threat any night. It seems like if he wants to be.
Yeah, I love that how confident he is. He's never afraid to rip a three, and normally you can see him knock it down. Report today, Celtics are interested in Jakob Poeltl from the Spurs, who will definitely be sellers. Would you like Poeltl?
I love him. I said last week, a guy who just grabs boards. He's quiet, plays bench minutes, but does a lot of good things. And no diss to my boy Luke
Bismack.
Cornett, who was Bismack, yeah, no
Yeah.
diss to Bismack. But Portal he's a good player. I mean, he's quietly had a really good career in San Antonio after moving on from the Raptors. I know they're in the mix too. I know they want him for some reason, which
I don't get that.
I think they're just gone without a sentiment for so long. They kind of finally decided they need one, but it's a little late in your season for that.
Right.
I agree. Yeah, no, I think the Celtics will definitely be in on him. It's just kind of what they're willing to spend to get him. I I wouldn't want to see them overspend because I feel like he's probably just a rental and he's probably gone.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe you get him to resign or something, and he comes off the bench.
Yeah, because it's the home stretch. The NBA trade deadline's, I believe, February 3rd. So we got a couple
Yeah.
weeks to get there. And the Celtics, I think the Warriors are going to be active. I think they're going to do something. I don't know what, but I think they'll try to improve their team because they still think they're in that winning window, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
The Raptors got a big win yesterday at MSG in overtime, but I mean the Hawks I think are better than them. I think the Knicks, yes, they lost to them. Knicks lost the Raptors. I think the Knicks are better.
Yeah, me too. Oh,
I
big time. The Raptors are what they are. I think the Raptors are going to be very lucky to get into a play-in role
mhm,
because they just defensively it just doesn't seem like it's been that year, which is really strange because I feel like a lot of what they have been in the past has been great defensively.
right.
But I don't know what's changed, but I just don't feel like it's been that year for them that they've been able to play into Nick Nurse's system that structures them and be able to hold down teams because I feel like every time I look, they're getting bucketed 120, 130 every night.
Mhm. And Van Fleet's played better as of late. I think teams will. You're gonna have to match salaries in that trade, which can always be tough
Yeah,
midway through a
tricky.
season. But I look at a team like Phoenix, who I think is desperate to win. I think he'd be a good addition there. I don't know if you have the pieces to make that trade to try to improve your team.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, your Celtics are not looking for a guard. I'm just thinking of good teams. You could trade them out west potentially. But a lot of teams, I think, are set. Like there's no, I don't think there's going to be major trades at the deadline because I think the good teams we know that are good, like Sacramento is stuck. I'm joking about how good they are, but they like their guards.
Mm-hmm. Oh
The,
yeah.
the Lakers would love another guard, but they can't trade. I think Van Fleet would be a really good fit in LA because I think it would give LeBron time off the ball, and you have another score. But I don't know. You're not trading those two late picks that we talked about last week for Fred Van Fleet. I don't think.
Not someone that old, no. I mean,
Yeah,
if he was maybe 23 instead of 33, it'd be a
yeah,
different bargain. But yeah, no, you can't trade for someone after all the damage you've already done to your team as of late. You know what? And what about there's other team like I saw Orlando might be in the mix, and you were thinking, well, Orlando, but like there's a young team on the up and coming.
yeah.
Fred could kind of get behind that because that's kind of what he went through with the Raptors a little bit, where
Right.
Siakam and OG Anunoby, those were young guys who were coming in the league, and Fred obviously made his way through the G League. It would be really interesting to see him play on a team like that because he would be a starter and he would be one of the better players on the team, but maybe in a few years they do become a
Yeah,
little bit more effective than what they are
I
now.
like that. Like you said, Orlando's got the nucleus of being a really good team. Like Banchero was already a really good NBA player.
Yeah. Oh,
Franz
absolutely.
Wagner is very good. I like Wendell Carter Jr. is very good also. So that would be interesting. I like that. D Rose, he doesn't play with the Knicks. I think he can play for a team in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I
There's a
I
there.
think he ends up somewhere for sure in the
Yeah.
playoff team.
Is he signed in New York right now? I don't even know. I haven't seen him.
He's like one of those guys that he just DNPs all the time. So I imagine he'll be bought out
Yeah,
after the
and I
trade.
think they should too. I mean, if there's anyone who deserves to be on a contending team, I don't think I think D Rose is the definition of that guy. Kind of a quiet career after with the Bulls, but still,
Mhm.
like he can be effective and he can be a great backup guard and produce offensively. Still,
Absolutely. What'd you make of the NFL this weekend? What was the best game for you?
yeah, I know you're a big kicker guy, so I knew last night was
Oh,
very very frustrating for you, Midnight Rider. It was
Jesus.
Yeah, that was pretty pathetic. I think me and you better start trying out for some some under college teams just to see if
Uh,
we can sneak into the NFL.
yeah.
No, but no, it was good. Most games are play by play, and I felt like this weekend / Monday was half by half because in one half it looks like the Chargers were going to dominate and they're going on to another round, and another half the Jaguars completely took over. One half it looked like it was a pretty even spread between Geno Smith and Brock Purdy, and next thing you know, Brock Purdy takes over. So it was just kind of one of those weekends where a second half kind of rejuvenates a team or really flushes them down. And in the case of some of them, I guess, like I mean, not that the Brady had anything going last night, but like it just felt never ending to watch him lose. I know
It was kind of sad last night.
it was kind of sad to watch, a guy who's dominated so many years in the playoff and, had so many close battles, and that was just not even close. And obviously it's not all his fault. He's got a defense that, didn't work out for him last night in the Bucks, but still, yeah. I mean, I don't know. There was some good matchups though, and I really enjoyed it. I tried to watch as much of it as I can, like I promised myself I would. And yeah, I'm excited for next week's matchups. I think they'll be exciting.
What's your Super Bowl prediction?
From here on out, I went through it yesterday. I think we're gonna see Eagles, San Fran, and I think on the other side, I'm going rematch Joe Burrow and Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna see. Oh God, it's tough. It's tough because Mahomes has never beat Joe Burrow, right? So to do it in this caliber would be very difficult. I think we are going to see Kansas City take on San Fran, and I know that's always been your prediction, but I feel like that's the way it's got to be. It almost feels like that's destiny, a rematch between those two teams.
Yeah, I agree. Brock Purdy, pretty good, continues to dial it up.
What I said last week, their guy. It's their guy, man. Like
guy.
And I didn't think he'd play that well. I thought he was going to be struggling.
Mm-hmm.
If over 300 yards, no picks, good on him. Good for the kid. Good for Mr. Relevant.
Yeah, he's certainly relevant now. So Tuesdays, is it a work from home day for you, or what's the setup for you now? Settling into the new gig.
Yeah, the new gig is kind of zip on home at 4:00, get here on 4:30, and then I get to talk to you, which I love. But then it's probably work a little bit at night, but nothing too hard. I think that the tougher times have kind of not left, I guess, but they're almost in my past. So
right,
yeah, some still busy times here at old JDI, but some things ahead. I did have a couple notes I wanted to bring by you.
Okay, I love it.
This is an interesting fan story that I watched a TikTok about, and I couldn't get it out of my head for some reason. So I wanted to hear your thoughts. Have you heard the story about the Chiefaholic?
About robbing banks?
Yes.
Yes,
yeah.
I have.
So I want to share this on the pod because this is just such a fascinating story.
Yeah.
And I love bank robbers. So there's, yeah, this is maybe not the right time to say that. So basically there was this fan. He's never missed I don't know how many years. He's never missed a home or away game for the Kansas City Chiefs. He wears a wolf costume with a Chiefs jersey on top of it and a hat, the sunglasses, the whole ordeal. Never missed a game in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And fans started to get a little nervous when he missed the last Chiefs game.
Yeah, he missed the game. I believe it was in Houston at NRG Stadium, and he wasn't there. So people started to legitimately get worried online that he might be dead.
Yeah, this is like if you ever been to Tampa Bay, you know the Tampa Bay fan. Like there's one guy who dresses the same for every Tampa Bay Lightning game. This is that guy, but for the Kansas City Chiefs. And sure enough, this guy was in jail for robbing a bank. And it turns out he robs banks. Every time he goes to an away game, he robs a bank and then goes, and that's how he pays for his tickets to these games. On top of that, he's he's embezzled his money through donations and buying memorabilia from the Chiefs and sports gambling. Anyways, this is a wild story. I would suggest anyone to go look this up because it almost feels fake, but it's very much real.
Yeah.
That a bank robber might be the biggest Kansas City fan in the world.
Yeah, so I love the story too. I heard it on the Levitard show because I wouldn't have seen it on
Social media,
Twitch or what were you just saying? What's that
the
called?
old TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah, there you go. My references, but I heard it there and I'm like, this guy's a genius. He got caught. That's part of doing business. But pay him for the next game, robbing banks. That's basically the town, which I've rewatched recently.
Well,
And
it's kind of
gotta,
smart. Like if he does it in somebody else's city, like
yeah,
it's
you just
not
get
like
over there. You
the
want to see
locals
stuff,
are the locals aren't gonna be like, yo, there's the same guy robbing banks again. But no, it's
right?
like he's robbing it. He's a quick in and out guy, but yeah, unfortunately he's not. I'm gonna wonder how this affects the mojo of the Kansas City Chiefs. Does this
True.
kind of play into them, or do they maybe not even care?
Maybe they bring like sacks of money to the game, like those bags that you used to see in the old timey movies, those with the money sign on them. Maybe they'll bring that in honor of the Chiefaholic.
Yeah, the
What's
Chiefaholic.
what's
Also,
Oh
I
yeah,
got one last dire question before you kick me off here.
okay.
Is Dalton Schultz a top 5 tight end?
No,
Okay, okay. I
but
had to ask
he's
that.
good. He's good. He's very good.
Will he be?
He can't block. It's the only thing about him, but he is good. I thought he was their best receiver last night. He was
Yeah.
fantastic in the game last night. But I do like him. But I mean, let me think about it. Obviously, you got Trav,
Yeah.
you got Kittle,
Mark Andrews still there.
Gesicki, Mark. Oh yeah, Mark Andrews. I like him a lot. If I go, I like Noah Fant in Denver quite a bit. He's an underrated little sneaky. Now he's in Seattle. Pardon me. I traded for your boy. Let's ride. Dalton Schultz be a top 5 or 6, 7. I'd say tight ends.
Okay. So
He's
he's in the top 10. He's sneaking in the top
yes,
10.
yes, sneaking into the top 10 for sure. Dallas Goedert's really good in Philadelphia as well. Yeah, no, he'd be there. He'd be. It's a good shout though. I like that. What have you been watching this week? Anything interesting to tell the listeners?
Binge watched the new Jack Ryan, the new season of that. I had low expectations and I came out very pleased. Very, very well done. Interesting story. I thought they were going to go, when a show starts off small and kind of snowballs until it gets a little, you're
Yeah,
like, really? Like, this is where we're going. I didn't think that whatsoever. Thought it was pretty realistic, which, maybe you watch it and maybe you might not think, but I thought for the franchise and what I know about Tom Clancy, I thought it was pretty good. Watched your boy Brad Pitt Bullet Train for the first time.
did you like it?
It was all right. It was good. Some of the acting was a little spotty, but the story was really interesting, and
Mm-hmm.
the playbacks were kind of cool. You'd stop midway through a scene, and then it could be like, this is why this led up to this part. And I enjoy those type of movies, so kind of right up my alley.
Yeah, I'm watching Jack Ryan season 1 right now.
Oh, there you go. What do you think so far?
Really enjoying it. I like
Yeah.
the military parts of it. Obviously, they're going after uh, an Islamic terrorist type thing, but I like I forget the guy's name that works with Jack Ryan, but
Oh, Bunk.
yes, yeah, but yeah, Bunk from The Wire.
Yeah.
I find it so interesting that he is Muslim, which I like that they're bringing that up because I find that interesting because you just naturally, I think we as society, we assimilate terrorism with Muslims, which is not fair whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that. I've enjoyed it. I think 3 episodes in, so I've watched that. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, I can't see him being 007. Sorry,
Yeah, I saw that got brought up a couple
he can't
times.
pass being
What's up with
007.
that? He's just not. I don't know. Well, maybe I shouldn't put my two cents out there. It's
I
been
don't know.
interesting. I don't know who fills those boots because I mean, your boy Torrey Craig, aka Daniel Craig.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's been in there for a while, and he's a grit grind vet. So it'll be difficult, but yeah, I mean, everyone's gonna have an opinion, right? Everyone's gonna think, oh, he's got to be 24. Like some
yeah,
people are saying Tom Holland. I'm like, Tom Holland looks like I might put him in my locker and not
right.
maybe kick ass in the M1 MI6. But anyways, who knows? Could be interesting. Could be a cool little spin.
enough of Tom Holland. Enough. Not
Yeah,
enough.
yeah,
He's in this stupid fucking keep him in Marvel for a while. Like I have
yeah,
enough of him.
yeah.
Come on.
Basically, yeah, yeah. If it's some dummy like Chris Pratt, I don't know
No,
if I could watch it.
I'd rather have Tom Holland than Chris. I'm sick of Chris Pratt too.
Yeah, not a Chris Pratt
Guardians
guy.
or whatever, those stupid Jurassic World, all those crap movies that just. Ugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, always great to chat with you, my friend, and I'll see you next week.
Yes, appreciate you, and have a good night, Midnight Rider.
Yeah, yeah, you too. There's Shamus, everybody. Great to talk with him as we do every Tuesday. Fun show today. Got into a lot of different things. Tomorrow, I do want to talk about Jim Harbaugh. I want to get into some more NFL topics. Some news today regarding the Chargers and what they're doing, not with their head coach, but with other coordinators. So I will touch on that tomorrow. I also want to get into some UFC storylines that are taking over the airwaves. So we'll touch on that on tomorrow's edition of To the Point. But until then, have a great night, everybody. Enjoy the games. We'll talk to you tomorrow. This is To the Point.